Subscribe now. EU Debates.
Bon dia. Presidente Sanchez, querido Pedro, President Aragonés, President Faust, Excellencies, Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished members of the jury, I want to thank you for this prestigious award. It's really humbling me. And Dr. Tocci, dear Natalia, where are you? There you are. Many, many thanks for your kind words. I really cherish that, so many thanks. I'm truly honored by this prize, and it's wonderful to follow the big steps of my good friend Mario Draghi. The Cercle Economia, indeed, President Faust, as you said, was created during the dark days of Franco's dictatorship as a place to debate and imagine the future. And ever since, for over 6 decades now, it has stood on the right side of history. It has stood for democracy and for an open economy. The Cercle has always worked to bring Spain where it belongs, at the center of a strong and united Europe. And today, Spain is indeed at the heart of Europe. You've been among the hardest hit by the pandemic, and yet today your recovery has solid foundations. You are a global leader in clean energy. You have a dynamic and innovative economy. And you've always been a vocal supporter of the most recent steps of European integration. España es hoy un motor de nuestra unión. This is a defining moment for Europe and for our future. I'm very grateful that you decided to focus the annual meeting on Europe's moment. I remember I used this expression for the first time 2 years ago, in May 2020, when I announced the creation of Next Generation EU, the Recovery Fund. We were in the middle of the first pandemic wave. In our union, at the worst moment of that dramatic spring, almost 1,000 people were dying daily because of COVID. Almost 1,000. And the scale of that crisis was such that only as a union could we provide the answers to our citizens. Indeed, it was Europe's moment to step in. It was a make or break moment for the European Union. Now, fast forward, May 2022, the present day. COVID has not disappeared. Our guard is still high, but the pandemic feels like a distant echo. Yet, thousands of innocent people are once again dying right here in Europe because of the Kremlin's aggression against a peaceful country. And it's not only the future of Ukraine that is at stake. It is an attempt to tear down the security architecture in Europe. And it is a global tectonic shift. The great powers of the world are aligning themselves again. Putin's war by choice is an attack on everything we believe in, against the idea that a country's future should be decided democratically by its own people and not by some foreign autocrat. And to impose his spheres of influence, the Kremlin is not only devastating Ukraine, it is also trying to play the old game of divide and rule. There is only one way for us to help our Ukrainian friend win this war and to be the masters of our own future, and that's by choosing unity. Even more than 2 years ago, this is Europe's moment. Today, I can tell you with certainty that Europe is seizing its moment. We're tapping into the true power of our union. We did it first and foremost with our strategy on vaccines. Second came Next Generation EU. And now our unprecedented sanctions on Russia and our drive to free ourselves from Russian fossil fuels. You, dear Natalia, Dr. Tachi, said that Europe has rediscovered its DNA, and this is so true. But we have also broken new ground. We've pushed our boundaries and redefined the limits of what is possible step by step. Take vaccines. It's a European success story. It is no coincidence that the first safe and effective vaccine against COVID was developed in Europe. Because science thrives in democracy and in a social market economy like ours. That's the story of the mRNA technology. It all started with researchers following a bold and innovative idea. It is thanks to their pioneering spirit and our freedom of research. Then came Euro public support to this kind of support and research. And finally, the power of the market and our private investment. And because of this unique mix, the researchers, the European support, the democracy of free minds and free science and research, the public support and the private investment, the world can rely today on mRNA vaccines. And yet, only 2 years ago, none of us knew whether science would win in developing an effective vaccines. This, 2 years ago, is when we first proposed that our union stepped in. And just imagine what would have happened if only a few member states, the big ones, would have had access to vaccines while the others would have left being outside in the cold. It would have severely weakened our fight against the virus, and it would have torn apart our union. Instead, we pooled our resources to scale up the production, and we made sure that all member states had equal access to life-saving vaccines. Today, 3/4 of Europeans received at least 2 doses. 60% of us received booster shots too. But also another fact is important. We achieved all this while remaining open to the world. That was not easy, and you remember the pressure that was on us to close down, to shut down Europe's export. For every dose of vaccine produced in the European Union, 1 dose was shipped abroad. We made the choice of solidarity, but not only for our fellow Europeans, but also with the rest of the world. This is unique. This is Europe, and I think we should keep that in our collective memory. The second moment I would like to focus on is indeed the birth of our recovery plan, Next Generation EU. And Pedro, I'm sure you remember these months very well. It took long council days and nights, but we overcame the decades of ideological debates on whether our union should raise money on behalf of the member states. And let me thank you again, Pedro, for believing in Next Generation EU from the very first day on. As of today, we have already provided to our member states roughly 100 billion euros in investment under Next Generation EU. It is an unprecedented plan with investment and reform. And this plan can reshape our economy for decades ahead, making our European Green Deal a reality, speeding up our digitalization. With 800 billion euros of investments, Next Generation EU will make Europe and Spain stronger and better prepared to face the challenges of our time. And Spain has always been a Next Generation EU frontrunner. You were the first country to request and receive financing, and now you are the first country, again, to request the second tranche of funds. Next Generation EU is already making a difference here in Catalonia. For instance, President, Next Generation EU will support innovative companies using blockchain technology to certify the origin of wine and prevent fraud. Or it will invest in the supercomputing center in Barcelona. You showed it to me when we were on the terrace. Indeed, a European and global excellence which carries on cutting-edge research spanning from healthcare to climate science and you name it. Next Generation EU will also contribute to turning Catalonia in one of Europe's new hydrogen valleys. This region is the perfect setting for it. You produce plenty of energy from wind, water, and nuclear, and now you are creating a full hydrogen ecosystem. You're investing in clean hydrogen production, in new fleets of hydrogen buses for Barcelona and Tarragona, but also in the skills and the education with a new inter-university master in hydrogen technologies. This is amazing. And there is no better example of the kind of change that we wanted to set off when we launched Next Generation EU. This has only become more urgent after Russia's aggression in Ukraine. This is my third and final point. Spain has built through the years a resilient energy system based on homegrown renewable energy and a diversified network of energy suppliers. You have, we spoke about it, the largest regasification capacity in Europe, and you are already becoming the main hub for LNG from Africa and the Americas. Now all of Europe agrees that we must cut our dependency on Russian fossil fuels. It is crucial for our climate goals and to end the Kremlin's blackmail. Last month, we put forward a new plan called Repower EU to replace 150 billion cubic meters of Russian gas per year. 150. That is the amount of gas we imported last year from Russia. So first of all, I have agreed with President Biden the additional supply of 50 billion cubic meters of LNG from next year on. This will replace already 1/3. We are redoubling our hydrogen goals. This could replace another third. And we will privilege cross-border projects, for example, the critical connection between Portugal, Spain, and France. It has to come now. Because together, we can set ourselves free from Russian threats, and therefore even those projects, the interconnections between Spain and France, shows it has a geopolitical importance, and we really should work on it as a union. And as a union, we are undermining Russia's ability to lead this war of choice. This is also the goal of our 6 waves of sanctions. We are paralyzing the Russian central bank's capacity to raise capital and to finance this war. We are de-swifting Russian banks. We're banning imports of Russian fossil fuel. We started, as you know, with coal. And earlier this week, I have proposed to phase out all Russian oil imports. We ban all exports on Russia on modern technologies. More than 700 international companies have left Russia. The World Bank forecasts a collapse of the Russian GDP by 11% this year. So, ladies and gentlemen, Putin has mobilized his armed forces to wipe out Ukraine from the map. We have mobilized our unique economic power to protect Ukraine. And this is also a new chapter in our union's history, a new way of putting economic power to counter military power and military aggression, and to defend our most cherished European values. This is what is behind the cold language of sanctions and the dry numbers of energy imports. Everything we've been doing these weeks is for the people of Ukraine. It is for their democracy and their freedom to write their own country's future. But ultimately, it is also for our democracy, for our freedom to follow the rule of law and to reject the right of might. Our desire to live in peace in a continent finally united. When the people of Ukraine look at our union, that's what they see: democracy, peace, the rule of law, individual and economic freedom. This is what Europe stands for today. And as I was preparing my trip here to Barcelona, I was reminded of the story of the Catalan cellist Pau Casals. He was one of the greatest musicians of his time. He enjoyed worldwide fame, but when Spain fell under authoritarian rule, Casals chose exile. He decided that he would not play music in his home country and in all countries that recognized the Franco regime until democracy returned to Spain. Pau Casals stood by his choice for his entire life. And once he explained, and I quote him, "I am not a politician. Politics do not belong to an artist. But to my mind, an artist is under the obligation of taking sides in human dignity if human dignity is at stake." End of quote. The legacy of Pau Casals lives on. Today, Europe is taking sides for human dignity and for democracy for all. And therefore, thank you so much for awarding this prize to me. Many thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam President, and congratulations again. Thank you very much.